How a Central Texas company is helping people with disabilities surf the web.
And it's a piggyback ride like no other. How the Space Shuttle Discovery, see it there, is getting ready for another flight, this time as a passenger.
It could be the largest retail store under one roof to ever come to Central Texas. I'm Kevin Peters. I'll tell you who's coming.
More Central Texans get their news from KView than from any other Austin station.
The internet has become an indispensable luxury so many of us can't live without.
But there are over 50 million Americans who can't access the internet as easily because of a disability. Our KV's George Kanik is at the Texas School for the Blind, showing us some of the technology available for internet users who have disabilities. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Jason. Good morning, Melissa. Now, imagine not being able to use your internet as easily as we can. Now, for a long time, people with disabilities or who were visually impaired couldn't surf the net quite that easily. Well, for a long time that happened, but now things are a little bit better. A nonprofit organization here in Austin called Knowbility is trying to change that and make it a lot easier for all users to use the internet. And joining me this morning is Randy Horowitz. He is with Knowbility. Good morning, Randy.
Good morning, George.
Tell us how websites so far have kind of been improving, how things have been improving for people who are visually impaired or disabled.
Well, that's kind of twofold. There is a screen reader out there that's things that read me the screen, and they've been developed to help read websites, and the folks who produce websites have actually done a better job of making them so that they're readable by these screen readers.
Can you show us how one of those works?
Sure, I'll just have it read the beginning of this website real quick for you here.
And this is the Knowbility website.
This is the Knowbility website, yes, sir.
Knowbility, this page link graphics skip to main navigation heading level 1 support the independence of people with disabilities.
Now tell us more about Knowbility. Tell us how they're helping you out.
Sure. Knowbility is a nonprofit organization here in Austin, as you said, which is interested in promoting access to the web by everybody, accessibility to everyone. And they help local companies and companies around the nation make their websites more accessible to accomplish their mission. What
a great nonprofit organization. They also have something coming up called the Accessible Internet Rally. Tell us what that is.
Yes. Well, this is kind of everybody wins here. We being Knowbility, help local nonprofit websites. Folks want websites, right? And they're not always easy to create. So we will help create them, the websites, and we get volunteers from the community who are web developers from large companies and small. The only trick is that these nonprofits are going to get a website, but it's going to be an accessible one. We teach the folks how to make those sites accessible.
That's great, and that's what the Accessible Internet Rally is you're actually going to be making websites. It's a competition to make websites that are usable for everyone.
Yes, sir.
Great. Randy, thanks so much for joining us. And this technology that they have available now, Jason and Melissa, is absolutely amazing for people with disabilities or who are visually impaired. Coming up in the next half hour, we're going to talk more about the Accessible Internet Rally and also show you maybe a website or two that's not quite up to the standards that probably are necessary right now across the internet world. Reporting live in Central Texas, George Kanik, KV News.
Thanks a lot, George.
Well, did you know that there are over 50 million people in this country who can't use a computer to check their email or look up sports scores because computer technology really isn't available for their disability?
Well, there's a local nonprofit organization named Knowbility that's trying to change that, one internet user at a time. KV's George Kanik is live at the Texas School for the Blind. Good morning, George.
Well, good morning, Melissa. Good morning, Jason. Now, using the internet has become such an important part of everyone's lives, but most people and most companies are finally starting to understand that the need to make their websites accessible for the over 55 million people who are disabled or visually impaired is very, very important. And Randy Horowitz joins us this morning. He is with Knowbility, a nonprofit organization here in Central Texas that helps companies build accessible websites. Good morning, Randy.
Good morning, George.
So last segment, we talked about accessible websites and some of the companies and the websites that are so good for people who are visually impaired or disabled. Show us one that isn't so good right now.
Okay, so we're sitting here on a pretty big one, right? Amazon.com. Right. So I'll just start it reading here.
Amazon.com, online shopping for electronics, apparel, computers, books, DVDs, and more. Image map link ref equals top nav SB gateway /0022,908,000.
That's kind of gibberish. So that's gibberish. That kind of is where Knowbility steps in. Tell us what Knowbility is.
Knowbility is, as you said, a nonprofit organization, and our job is to help create access to the web and accessible things by everyone.
Right, and they have their 8th annual Accessible Internet Rally coming up. Tell us what that is and why so many companies here in Central Texas get involved in that.
Okay, what that is it's a competition. What we here at Knowbility provide training to volunteers from all over the tech sector, from big companies and little here in Austin, to provide nonprofit organizations websites, but they have to provide them accessible websites, and that's where we come in. Why is it important and why do people care so much is, well, A, it's become the law in a lot of places, and B, you're trying to sell to 55 million people out there, right? So you want to make sure you can sell to all those 55 million people.
Right, and that's what's so important is that,
Sure.
it's such a large part of the demographic and part of the population, and Knowbility is, of course, helping people out with that.
Exactly.
Randy, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Again, Knowbility is holding their internet rally, their accessible internet rally coming up. Very important for all the 55 million plus people who can't quite use the internet quite as easy as all of us with the point and click of the mouse. So good for Knowbility for being out there. Reporting live at the Texas School for the Blind, George Kanik, KVUE News.
George, this is new technology, I know, but do you get a feel for what may happen in the future?
Well, I was talking to Randy about what would happen in the future, what they see happens, and once companies understand the benefits of making an internet website accessible, it helps out everyone. It winds up being universal, which means over 60% of everyone winds up using that technology. So that's what the future holds. The future is the challenge of making these websites accessible to people who are disabled or visually impaired, and therefore makes it accessible to everyone.
Interesting. All right, thanks a lot. George Kanik reporting live. Well, there are more than 50 million people in the U.S. that are disabled, and for them, using the internet is not as easy as pointing and clicking a mouse.
Well, now the local nonprofit organization Knowbility is trying to make the internet more accessible for the visually impaired as well as the disabled. Our KVUE's George Kanik is live in the newsroom with more about Knowbility and a rally they're organizing to improve the internet for everyone. George?
Well, hi, Jason. Hi, Melissa. 50 million people is a huge portion of the market, and imagine if you have a website that could offer everything to this population that it offers to everyone else. Well, that's what Knowbility does. They teach companies in Austin and around the country to build websites that are easier to use for those who are visually impaired. Now, in the fall, they will be holding their 8th annual Accessibility Internet Rally, or AIR Austin. Now, it's designed to bring webmasters from local businesses, large and small, to first teach them how to build a completely accessible website, and then after they learn how to do it, to build one in competition for a local nonprofit organization.
We give you the training, and then you go out and have the rubber meet the road and actually make accessible websites.
People with disabilities can live more independently when they can perform the same functions and have access to the same technology-based information as people without disabilities.
Now, the Accessible Internet Rally will be held on Saturday, October 1st, and they're still looking for companies to be involved and volunteers. Now, if you're interested, you can go to kvue.com and click on the web link section. We've set up a link to the Accessibility Internet Rally there for you. Jason, Melissa?
Now, George, this collaboration, this rally, really is going to help out everyone who's involved in it.
Jason, it is. It's actually a win-win-win situation. Employees of companies get trained on how to build accessible websites, which of course opens up a new segment of the population for them. Local nonprofit organizations get a new high-tech, accessible, professionally built website, and most importantly, navigating through those sites that are built is much easier for people who are disabled.
All right, George Kanik reporting from the newsroom. Thanks so much, George.
You're welcome.